Crypto had a huge drawdown over the last couple of months. Actually, from mid-October last year. Lots of investors are frustrated as they are sitting on significant losses. But could this be a good time for new investors to start a position or to DCA if you already own crypto? Over the same period, so over the last 6 months, there was a lot of hype around gold and silver, and a lot of retail investors jumped ship and invested in them. Potentially, this has also contributed to the price decline as it had sucked the air out of crypto. But there were a lot of other forces at play as well, like the deleveraging following the 10th of October. The question is if it can recover and what the future potential is. If you look at the past, crypto was always super volatile. Since 2018, Ether had several drawdowns of more than 60%. So you had several waterfall declines, but most of them were followed by a V-shaped recovery. In the past, that meant that prices recovered as fast as they have fallen once they have reached the bottom. Will this be true this time around as well? Only time will tell. BitMine is a vehicle that tracks Ethereum's price, but it is designed in a way that it will outperform on the upswings. BitMine's target is to hold 5% of all Ether, and they are getting close to that threshold. If you look at this slide, you can see that Ether had several drawdowns over the last couple of years. If you go back to 2018, that was the biggest decline with 91%. Overall, there were 8 drawdowns bigger than 45% each in the last 8 years. They were not evenly distributed, but on average, there was one huge drawdown every year. And then, if we zoom in and look at the price action over the last 3 years, you can see the same. In 2024, Ether fell 46% and then recovered. In 2025, in the first 3 months, so from January to March, the price of ETH fell from around $3,600 to all the way down to $1,500. And looking back, that was a great opportunity to buy Ether. If we go a step further and look at these steep declines, we can see that ETH had a V-shaped recovery. Basically, most of the time you had a drawdown in the past, it was followed by a sharp and fast price recovery. Now, we know that there is a strong correlation between the price of Ether and BitMine, as it is an Ether treasury. So the question is, what is possible going forward? Once Ether finds the bottom and recovers, what does the runway look like? The price increase should be supported by several factors. In general, you have a pro-crypto government, and back in 2025, there were several other positive developments as well. Additionally, more and more projects are built on Ether. But you also have an increasing number of financial institutions that offer Ether-related ETFs to their customers. For example, BlackRock, which is the world's largest asset manager, began buying Ether for its Ether staking ETF. In their SEC filing, they have stated that they have bought Ether to seed their ETF. And the asset managers and banks are launching these new products because there is clearly demand from these products from their customers. Look at the endowment of Harvard University. They had invested in a Bitcoin ETF before, and now they have sold around 20% of that ETF, and they have invested in BlackRock's Ethereum ETF instead. And this is the first time that they have disclosed an investment in Ether or in an Ether-related product. And beyond all these things happening, the number of crypto wallets is increasing. Over the last 6 months, the number increased by around 60%. If you step back, you can see that the average price correlation over the long term between Bitcoin and ETH was around 0.05. This means that on average, Ether was trading at a value that is 5% of Bitcoin. So for example, if Bitcoin is trading at 50,000, then ETH should be at 2,500 and so on. Now, Tom Lee believes that Ether will get back to its 2021 high, which was 0.0873. The rationale would be Ether's utility value and broadening adoption. So you can see that if this would happen, And with Bitcoin reaching $100,000, Ether should trade at $8,700. Now, this would also mean that if Bitcoin reaches $200,000, then ETH would trade at around $22,000 per coin. And we established that BitMine stock price follows that of Ether. It usually drops less when Ether declines, and then it outperforms on the upswings. If we look at the long term, Tom Lee believes that Ether can get to 22,000. And I know that he made a lot of calls in the last couple of months which didn't materialize. But he could be right in the longer term. According to him, if ETH were to reach 22,000, BitMine could trade at $500 per share. In other words, an ETH price of 22,000 would imply a $500 valuation for BitMine. In this case, BitMine's upside is much bigger than that of ETH, and BitMine will outperform ETH in a stronger upswing. BitMine is trying to create value beyond just holding Ether. For example, they are launching a staking entity and they are investing in different ventures as well. They are positioning Maven as the best-in-class staking solution offering secure staking. Beyond that, they are already staking a significant portion of their own Ether. With ETH at $3,000, this should generate more than $1 million per day for them. But not only that, they have also invested in beast industries. And I know that this is very controversial, and many of you don't like this move. But they believe that this will be transformational, as it will open doors to several new opportunities in the future. I made a video about this, so feel free to watch that next. At the end of the day, it all really comes down to positioning yourself before sentiment shifts. Because once the recovery is obvious, once headlines turn positive again, prices will likely already be much higher. The biggest gains historically came to those who were willing to accumulate when things felt uncertain. Of course, none of this is guaranteed. Crypto remains volatile and very risky. But if history is any guide, periods like this have often been the foundation for the next major move. Thanks for watching, and please give it a like, subscribe, and watch another video. See you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.